Hello, and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by Mike Smith, award-winning director Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Vonnie. This is episode 30, and on today's show, we do our favorite recurring segment, What We're Lovin'. And we briefly chat about the Battlefield 2042 trailer and the Tesla Model S Plaid unveiling. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund. Yeah. Me and Savon will just tag him. All right.
Yeah, Michael. No, I'm not even gonna do that to you. Yes, Mike and I will both talk.
What were you gonna say?
Tag team back again.
Nothing. I'm trying to be better.
No, say it. Say it with your chest, son. Say it.
No, be worse. This is a space to be worse.
Yeah. The show.
It's not even an original joke. I'm just gonna let it.
All right.
Gentrifying my segment, Mike. No, but please, I would love for us to both talk.
Couldn't help
that
himself.
needs to go in the that needs to go on somewhere.
He couldn't help himself.
Yeah, I actually haven't played Mass Effect lately, so I saw some balls talking about Castlevania.
So I kind of wanted to hop on his shit.
I want to be in the new cool area, the new cool name.
No, but actually, that's
Yeah, I'm gonna create a new brew pub in Castlevania. I'm sorry, a gastropub.
I love it. Okay, we're going to start this show. Welcome back, friends, by the way. We're going to start this show with What We're Loving. We haven't done these in a couple of weeks. We did say what we were hyped about, but we didn't talk about what we're currently into. So, Mike, start us off. What have you been into?
Maybe y'all, because me and Savon are doing the same thing. Maybe y'all should go first, or I can just go into it if you want.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I'll go. Brian, you can
What
go
are you
next.
into, Wesley?
Yeah, let me tell you, first of all, I don't buy, like, very many clothes, period. I just don't like it. I don't like the hassle of it. I don't like the decision-making process. It's just a lot for me because I want to get the best, but there is no best. There's just too many options.
Are you one of those guys that has a closet?
What's wrong with it? First of all, what's wrong with having a closet?
No, a closet full of just the same shit. Are you like the Simon Cowell type of guy? Is that what you're saying, Wes?
No,
You got the Superman closet, just all the same thing.
But anyways, I hate shopping. I don't like going to the grocery store because you got to choose. I don't like going clothes shopping because you got to choose. And it just seems like it's a lot of money for something that I don't really care about. Anyways, I went and got some hiking boots finally after maybe 5 years of saying I need some shoes that are like waterproof. In New Orleans, it rained torrentially all the time, right? You know, not all the time, but pretty often. And you would just have
all
to
the
step
time
in.
is
when
fair.
it rained,
Yeah.
it poured.
At least during the
But I
summertime.
mean, you guys
right?
got water shoes for that.
You just go barefoot.
Stay inside.
I'm not going barefoot. But you would just, I mean, there would be times where there's no avoiding like the torrential downpour or the water and your feet would be wet. And that's just annoying. And like, it would be better if you had rain boots of some sort. But I don't want rain boots because it just seems like you can't use them at any other time besides the like 4 times a year where it's torrentially downpouring and there's puddles everywhere. And I'm like, that's not useful. So I was like, what if I get hiking boots? So I went and got hiking boots. And then we had torrential downpour in Austin for like a week
You're
straight.
like, Jen, we gotta go.
Oh my
It's like,
God.
Wesley, it's raining. No, we gotta go on a hike
So
right
I
now.
So I bought these hiking boots and I was like, these are pretty cool. And you know that walking my dog around the neighborhood, I splashed in so many puddles testing to see if they were really waterproof. And they totally were. And I'm very satisfied. So if you want some waterproof hiking boots, get some Keens, Keen. I don't know if there's an S or not. But
No, it's just key. Big dad energy there.
oh, they're so good. But only for waterproofness, not for like just walking around regularly. The other thing,
No.
So your
That was
feet
great.
were in like agony, but they were dry.
no,
is what
no,
you're
they
saying.
fit comfortably. They're comfortable. I like them. The ankle part's a little bit tight, so I tend to like only lace them up to like the mid part, and then the tongue is just hanging out loose. I think it's fine. The other thing I've really been into is Binge Mode Marvel. And for those of you who don't know, it's a podcast, and they do pretty much like 2-hour deep dives into every single Marvel movie in order, from Iron Man all the way through. Actually, I think they've done through Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't think they're going to do any more. Or sorry, Far From Home. I don't think they're going to do any more because Jason Concepcion left The Ringer. It was a Ringer podcast. The level of research and hype and energy that these two hosts bring to the show is phenomenal. It's a big time investment to be listening. I think I've been doing, listening off and on since like September. But if you haven't listened to Binge Mode Marvel and you're really into like some of the comics lore that comes behind the movies, they do a segment on each movie, like how these stories were, like how they're inspired by the comic runs that came before it. They talk about the artists, they talk about like small Easter eggs, they talk about the connections, they talk about the symbolism. I mean, it's just a really well done, literary analysis, but in the movie. So it's pretty cool if you're big into like deep dive and analysis of movies. They do a phenomenal job with it, and just bring a ton of energy and fun. Something I'm not loving being a
Couldn't be us.
Would I like it?
I think you would. I mean, I think you would respect that.
Does
like,
Savon actually like anything? That's the question.
On the fence.
Yeah.
I think
On
you
the
would
fence.
respect that, like Jason, one of the hosts, he is an avid comics book reader, and he does a lot of research to bring into the show. And like, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, I remember reading that one, and yeah, I totally agree with that. Or like, oh man, I had a totally different reaction to that line of comics. So I think you would like that part of it at least.
So if you don't like Confidently Wrong, you should
Go listen to that.
Listen
yeah.
to Binge Mode
Yeah.
Marvel.
If you turns
They
out,
do a lot of research. A lot of
yeah,
energy.
thorough, entertaining analysis is better than incoherent rambling. Hot take.
I mean, don't
If
sell
you're a
ourselves short.
nerd.
We do our fair bit of research. We just don't do it on the level that they do it. They write out a script for sure for a lot of it.
We're simply built different.
I know this is going
Yeah.
long and this is dumb, but I'm just gonna host privilege here.
No, keep going.
Something I'm not loving right now. We're having
Tell
this
us your
plumbing
life.
work
No,
done.
it's everybody's show. Everybody has a voice.
Got
Sure,
him.
but my voice is going right now. We're having this plumbing work done that is a freaking nightmare. We've got 3 huge piles of dirt outside our house. The plumber came in. Shout out to my boy Geronimo. He came in.
Does he yell Geronimo when he starts plumbing?
And then he jumps
Look out
down.
for him.
They've literally dug out so much dirt from under our house and piled it outside. We have these rusted old drain pipes that are now just sitting outside our house. One of our bathrooms is like disconnected. He's like, don't use that middle bathroom. I'm like, why not? He's like, it's disconnected. It would just literally just everything from that bathroom would just fall into the bottom of your house. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, let's not do that.
One of our bathrooms?
Yeah.
I know who you are.
Right? You
Wes.
heard that?
I know,
We
I
got
know
2
who
bathrooms.
you are.
We got a whole 2
Oh my
bathrooms.
god. Yeah, waterproof shoes and 2 bathrooms.
I'm living that domestic suburban life, y'all.
2 bathrooms.
So, question: if I'm gentrifying segments, is Wesley just like a big developer right now who's just like tears down a house and builds like a skyscraper
Big
with like
Texas
20
oil.
condos?
He's like the Doug Dimmadome.
We got big dev energy over here.
It is terrible. And then he was like, hey, he called me up. I'm like proctoring a test the other day. He calls me up. He goes, hey, so the way that your plumbing is, in order for me to get to it, I'm going to
I
have
like
to
no one could see your face right now, but you have like a very like strong jaw. Like, what is this?
That's how I
really,
imagine
down-
Geronimo's
really
calling
making sure
me.
they sound not intelligent.
My boy Geronimo, he calls me up. He's like, I'm going to have to drill through the bottom of your beam. I'm going to have to like chip out a whole foot of it. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, I got to chip out a foot of your beam. And then, and then we'll call in an engineer afterwards to make sure that it's safe. I'm like, wait. Why are we doing this after the fact? Like, you're about to like break my house, break the foundation of my house. And your thought is like, let me do this afterwards. So it's been stressful. And then he's like, and then I'm like, well, what's the alternative? He's like, well, we could like dig around the outside, but then you're looking at like $4 to $6 grand more. I'm like, oh my God, I hate all of this. So that's the home ownership, I don't know, big FU to the face. Not loving this plumbing adventure.
All right, we're about to have the hardest pivot of all time to Brian's thing.
Brian, what are you loving?
So what I'm loving, this is a little belated, but what I'm loving, and I felt the urgency and the need to actually hype up this TV show, The Underground Railroad, which I don't think has been getting enough love out there. And I understand why. it's called the Underground Railroad. And obviously it is about, said historical Underground Railroad. It's about slavery. It's about America's problematic past and current day, as that past continues to linger in our society. But this TV show on Amazon Prime, 10 episodes, brought to us by Oscar-winning director Barry Jenkins, who, if you're into movies, he did Moonlight, he did If Beale Street Could Talk, all really incredible, gorgeous, beautiful movies, really powerful stuff. And he brought all that energy and creativity and love and just vision to this TV series that is unlike anything else out there on television. I'm telling, this is not hyperbole. This is just like a new milestone in high quality prestige television. I'm so glad that Jeff Bezos and Amazon threw all their money at Barry Jenkins. And so what he's done here, he's adapted this show from this Pulitzer Prize winning novel called The Underground Railroad. And what makes it interesting as a show is that it's not just a retelling of slavery in America, right? It's not that. It's actually something kind of interesting. One of the core premises of the show is that in the world of the show, is that the Underground Railroad is an actual underground railroad. There's a train system underground that's helping Black people escape from slavery and find freedom. And so we follow this one main character from Georgia, and she gets on this train, this secret train, and every episode she's taken to a new place in America. So the first episode is Georgia, the next episode is South Carolina, and then North Carolina. And in each of these landscapes, there's something different going on in the society. And so it's almost like a surreal mirror of history, right? And so they tease out these different sort of nuances of what was going on in each of those states, in the antebellum era. It's just really lush cinematography. The music and score and the sound design is all incredible and just adds to this feeling that you get from the show. Even though it's such a horrific topic in a lot of ways, it's also full of love and this mesmerizing vibe of yearning. It's just really palpable, every single episode. It's not something that you'd want to binge watch for obvious reasons. But I watched the whole thing in a week because I was just so deeply into every single thing that was happening on screen at any given time. It's a binge in that I was watching one every day. I wasn't watching
not a Wesley
the
binge.
entire yeah. I wasn't watching 2 series
So it's
in
a
a
real
single
train?
day or anything like that.
So what? So this is a fantasy deal? Because
So
when
it's,
you call the
it's,
thing Underground Railroad, to me, I took this as a historical show, but a fictional story. What you're saying is that
it's alternative history.
So is it more like magic fantasy, or just the train is just a thing, or is it kind of a weird? How grounded in do I have to suspend my disbelief in terms of, this isn't actually something that could happen in real life, or is it more so just, again, alternate path history? Because there's a difference to me.
What the literary scholars out there would call magical realism. So it's you definitely have to suspend disbelief, but they don't bother going into where this stuff came from or how it exists or anything like that. It's just something that it's just something that they accept and they're living with. But it definitely does go to some very surreal kind of interactions for the main characters of the story.
Would you say that the show is emphasizing or really leans heavily on the plot of the story over the 10 episodes, more on the character development, or kind of both together?
It's definitely both. There's an overarching plot which keeps driving the show forward. So basically, there's one runaway woman, and she's being chased by a slave catcher throughout the entire series. But the relationship between the two of them is also, a little bit. It's a lot more complex than you might imagine. And then the individual character, she has her own like family history that she's like trying to navigate, and her own sort of like personal character that she's trying to figure out who she is, and what freedom means to her, and all sorts of things, and what love means to her. That's a big part of the show. So yeah, it's all those things, and a lot of it is also just the vibe too, right? There's long stretches of like no dialogue, just like landscape cinematography and music. And one thing that Barry Jenkins does a lot in this show is actually do like portraits of the main characters, but also extras, basically just the huge cast of Black people looking straight at the camera while their beautiful landscape imagery around them surrounds those faces, and you hear the score swell. And so like elements like those, it really is just giving you a feeling more than anything else.
Dope.
So it's a great show. If the first episode is kind of a hard watch because that's when you like really see slavery.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can make it through that, like the rest of the series is very rewarding.
It has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, or 95, excuse me. But that's a critic score, a 79% audience score, which I'm assuming is just racist neckbeards. But can I read y'all the first review, the first critic review? It says, anyone may feel the Underground Railroad a magnum opus, but Jenkins is clearly a creative in ascent and just getting started. 3.5 out of 5.
What?
Whoa.
Hey, I'm gonna keep it $1.50. I don't care what none of them people gotta say. I only care about people who either are Black and have watched the show, or who just aren't idiots and have watched the show. But if you just I just don't care if you get paid to watch this stuff. Because if you just I'm just saying, if you're some random old person who just watching, right? If you don't give a damn what you gotta say, like
This reviewer does appear to be a young Black woman.
all right, cool.
All right.
Do I necessarily agree still? Maybe not, but as long as it's not just like old New York white guy giving like.
Oh, well, along those lines, I'll read one more. It's Joanne
God.
Laurier from the World Socialist website. She didn't rate it highly. She said, the so-called alternative history in Jenkins' The Underground Railroad sheds little light on actual history, but represents a significant distortion in the interest of racial politics.
I mean, I don't see myself watching it regardless, but I do like that additional context, Brian, of like, okay, so there's some fantasy, alternate history. Almost reminds me of what people said about what the Lovecraft Country type.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
it's all right, cool, okay.
But way more serious than that.
Okay,
So would you say this is like a drop everything and watch this now kind of thing? Like this should be at the top of your list?
If you're into it, I don't know that a lot of people can just like sit through something like this. If you like movies that like really challenge you every now and again, I love my MCU stuff. Obviously, I'm on this podcast, but sometimes like you want to sit with something that like makes you like confront it and think about it. This is that kind of show.
all right.
Also, arguably, if this is going to make you uncomfortable, maybe that's the type of person that should watch something like this.
Maybe.
Indeed.
All right, well, now we're going to talk about anime. Well, first off, shout out friend of the show, Tyler Roy, who I guess told us both about it. Savon got into it a lot, and then I got into it. So Castlevania is an old game. There were a few of them. They're largely like side-scroller, fighting kind of things like that. They made a Netflix show about it. So the setting is kind of like middle-aged Europe, maybe a little bit after that.
In a castle?
Yeah, castle, very dark, brooding.
There's a castle in Castlevania?
I know. And the castle actually moves too. And it's about vampires. And Savon will explain more about what this is, but I'm not even going to talk too much about the story. The thing that is so remarkable, and anybody listening to this, all 5 people are going to get so sick of hearing me say this, but the world building is so good, dude. They have created such a thorough, interesting universe that the actual story of this guy, Trevor Belmont, who comes from this old like family that fights monsters and vampires, is not secondary because it's obviously a very plot-driven show, but the world is such a unique part of it that it almost becomes its own character. So anybody should watch it. I'm not going to do too much of a summary, but I think
You're loving it.
I'm loving it. It's maybe not as high on watch it now as something like the Underground Railroad that actually has, merit to it. This is just kind of for funsies. Savon does not agree with that. That's fine. But Savon, why is this show so particularly good?
Yeah, so I like the show for 2 big reasons. One is just like I'm just an anime fan. I love artistically drawn, stylized, creative, well choreographed anime fights. I'll always be a fan of that. So first off, the show has plenty of that. So if you like watching anime characters just throw really good hands, this show will provide that. And on the base level, that's fun. And the animation's fun. It's just a treat to watch. The other reason I really enjoyed the show is the characters and their interactions. It's just really, really well done. I've known about the Castlevania games forever. I've never really been into them because to me, they always felt very Eurocentric, very Europe-heavy vampires. That aesthetic tends to just be it doesn't lend itself to a lot of diversity. So even though the games were cool, that never drew me in. This show still does that in that it's based heavily in Europe, but to Mike's point, they do a great job of really showing to you how big this world is. There are Christians, there are Muslims, you meet characters from, this isn't like a spoiler, but there's a point where you meet vampires of just all kinds of cultures. There's an Indian vampire, a Japanese vampire, and there's a whole bit that talks about that. But it does a good job of, okay, we're based in this place in medieval style Europe, but this is a big world, and there's all kinds of stuff happening all over. Like one prominent character in the show, he's just a Muslim, and he talks about the Prophet Muhammad and Allah and his faith, but the show also has all kinds of Christian iconic what's that word?
Iconography.
Thank
Good
you.
word.
I was gonna mispronounce
Good word.
That's one of those you read, you don't say it. But yeah. So it's all really fun to watch in that sense. But I really just like that they made an attempt to really just draw from multiple cultures, even though it's based in Europe. Because again, to me, that's the world doesn't just only have white people. And despite that being the setting, it's
What's the basic premise of the show?
So the premise is that it's kind of like the regular world, but there's also vampires who are immortal, super powerful, and there's kind of beef between vampires and humans. They don't really get along, and that's kind of like the closest comparison would be almost like race struggles.
They hunt us. We're prey. That's what it comes
they
down
eat
to.
us. Yeah,
it's
but they're also very advanced and rich and that kind of vibe. So the head vampire is Dracula. Vlad Dracula Tepesh is his name, which is cool that they gave him. Yeah, and it's cool. So the prologue of the show is that this woman goes to Dracula's castle and says, I want you to teach me science. So the thing about vampires is they're also very advanced and smart, almost like Renaissance in the time of the Middle Ages. So Dracula is this genius. He has all this knowledge, all this science, all this stuff. She's a doctor and wants him to teach her how to be how to learn science so that she can help people. And he's cold and the vampire, but then she forces her way into his heart. But the church finds out, and the church, I'm not just saying the church is a big thing. It's essentially the Catholic Church. Finds out that she's doing this science, and they accuse her of witchcraft, so they burn her at the stake. The show is incredibly violent. which is why I don't think Wes would like it, but I think Brian, you would like it a lot because it's like this really beautifully well told story that's visually appealing and then also just ultra violence essentially.
Like kids die and puppies die. Like they don't pull punches
it's
in terms
real.
of
Oh my God.
It's
very
real
grim
dark. It's very dark. But what happens is Dracula's wife gets executed, so he started to feel better about humanity, but then when they executed his wife, he lost his shit and decided he wants to kill every human on Earth.
The doctor's the wife now?
Yeah, they fall in love.
They fall in love, get married. He like
Important detail, Mike.
Sorry, I think I said that. You might just not have been listening.
No,
We'll
you
go to
didn't.
the
I don't
tape
think
on
he said
that.
they were married.
Well, they get married. She loves him, and then she gets executed. And then he loses all faith in humanity.
You say
and decides-
executed very weirdly.
Yeah, you put the eggs in
executed. I put that.
I say
Right.
executed.
Sunny side.
I'm gonna make a brunch restaurant called Executed. It'll be vampire themed. Oh my god, how terrible does that sound? Like you just go for brunch in like a dark, like dreary room. Anyway, he wants to kill everybody, and then this guy Trevor Belmont, who's the last member of this like historic family that devoted their life to monster hunting, is now responsible for killing Dracula to stop him from killing all humanity. That story gets to a point, and then the show morphs into something totally different, which is really cool. And a good comparison of how like these character development arcs kind of exist parallel and then intersected points with different points. It's kind of Game of Thrones-esque, which would be a pretty close comparison, but you know, it's actually getting to a point, unlike Game of Thrones. Highly recommend it. My main takeaway, like I told Savon, was like the show had like they did not need to go this hard on a video game show.
Yeah. So one thing I'll add to some of this besides the fact, so yeah, well choreographed, well animated. I think very good world building and art style. One interesting thing with the show too that's very much worth noting is there isn't really an end game as far as where the story is going, which isn't a bad thing, but it allows for them to be very fluid in their larger storytelling. The way that they just have so many other side characters, their own things, like major characters don't meet. Some of the major characters in the show, even up to the end of season 4, they've never met yet. It's all, and yet they still affect each other, affect the world. Like, oh, his actions, they've never met or even know the others exist, but they still clearly have their fates tied to one another. But as someone who's never played the games, they clearly do some really good references to the games, but it's violent, well animated, a very fun treat, very dark and grim, so maybe hard to just binge all the way through, because I do think at a certain point, even for me, like I can only watch so many people get literally ripped in half by demons.
Yeah.
But even
Not a
the
bedtime
demons,
show.
yeah, but even like the art design and stuff is just very, yeah, they just went hard. They just tried really, really hard, and it's a fun watch. Wes, you wouldn't like it. Ryan, you'd like it. People who like guts and dark anime type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
This is
into
kind of
dark
more so-
anime.
Yeah,
Wes would
definitely not
be like,
fun.
I like it, but do they have to be so violent? Like, how many
It's like,
times
yes,
do I have
that
to
was
see
their
somebody
point.
getting their face ripped off?
They're demons.
Yeah,
There's like
They don't-
this guy who has a weapon. He's like he does like the self-flagellation, so he has like kind of like a whip thing, but he puts like spikes on it, so he like whipped it around someone's face and then
pulls
it back,
it.
and then like his face just like
and they don't
unravels
cut
like
away.
like peeling
No,
an
they
onion
show-
or potato. Yeah, they show the whole thing, and I watched that, and I was in bed watching it. I was like, all right, I'm gonna turn this off. Like, I don't need to watch this before I go to sleep.
Yeah, I was just like, huh, okay.
Here's one other thing. It is very brooding. I've fallen asleep watching it like 10 different times.
Oh,
It's
my
just
Lord.
it's kind of a dirge in tone, which is like fine. It's a good thing about the show. I'm a sleepy boy also. Like, let's be clear, it's not a knock on the show. I tend to fall asleep watching stuff. It's like very
So do
it's
I.
like fast paced, but like it's very oppressive, I guess would be a good way to describe it.
So he needs a chaser, maybe. After
Yeah,
a couple
watch
episodes.
watch a little Backyardigans.
I
or
would play
something.
Breath of the Wild afterwards because I'm like,
Yeah,
I just need
yeah,
something that's
yeah.
like just a more positive tone.
Yeah.
I feel that.
It's also very like it's like all the monster and vampire. It's also very cynical of people. Is the tone of the show like people are
I mean,
bad?
it's kind of
and,
makes you
like-
cynical of everything.
Yeah, but like the whole tone is like humanity is like is flawed beyond repair. It needs to be extinguished.
Well,
After
you're like,
watching,
well,
Yeah, and
You
I'm
have
sure
to-
after watching
well,
that,
Mike-
you'd be like, yeah,
and like that's one of those like keep watching. Because I do think there's a tonal shift at a certain point that maybe happens more in season 4, but that's like finish season 4 and then I want you to revisit that thought.
All right, the people are tired of Castlevania. We're moving on. And the people, I mean me.
Yeah, Wesley wants to talk about his plumbing more.
Guys, let me tell you about plumbing. No, I'm just kidding. It's stupid. Oh, okay.
Let's talk about something else stupid.
Let's talk about, let's do it because I think it's going to be, well, I'm entertained by this idea. First of all, okay, this is going to be quick. We got 5 minutes. People got to go do real life things, not just podcast life things. Battlefield 2042 released a trailer last week. Holy cow. I mean, it's like a 5-minute trailer. It goes on forever.
It's pretty sick.
I'm not a Battlefield fan. I just happened to catch it, and I was like, this is cool. The guys want to talk about this. But what did catch my eye, if you guys know about the Boston Dynamics Robo-Dog, it's like the yellow thing, and it just like prances around, and they've made them do synchronized dances and stuff.
Doesn't the NYPD have those?
They do.
I think they did and discontinued them for a while because people were not very happy about them.
They terrified people. Yeah. They sent them
They're
into
just there for surveillance.
Lower income neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Who'd have thunk it?
Go look for it. But the trailer incorporates a version of that dog or something that's clearly inspired by that robot dog in the heart of battle and just doing all kinds of crazy tank battle, but agility stuff. It's like a robot battle cheetah dog. I don't know. I just thought that was really fun in a trailer, not fun in real life, but fun in a video game trailer. Did anything catch your eye, Mike? You're a Battlefield man, I think, and so is Savon. Are you guys
a lot
hyped by it?
A lot.
I'm really hyped.
Really?
Wait, what'd you say?
Extremely hyped.
You're hype?
You're hyped for it?
You're hyped?
Extremely hype?
Nice.
Yeah. I'm
Get
really,
out
really
of
hyped.
town. I have known you for 4 years. I've never heard those 2 words come out of your mouth.
I was hyped for in-game.
True. No, I'm really excited. I could do a whole episode about why this game could be great and if it is great, what that means. We're not going to do that. I'm very excited. There's a lot. They just are owning the campiness. In that trailer, someone jumps out of a fighter jet, uses a rocket launcher to blow up another fighter jet, and then jumps back into their plane, which is a classic Battlefield move. And it's just, I think in the past 3 or 4 years, we've seen a trend of just give the people what you want and what they want, and you'll make a lot of money. Marvel's done it. Call of Duty did it with Modern Warfare. I think they're going in that direction, and then they didn't, but they tried to. But I think if they can pull this off, it'll be pretty massive. So it's something we can talk about later. But I don't care about the game, just the fact that Savon is extremely hyped.
Yeah, let's hear about this. Why are you hyped?
Yeah, I'll keep it. Yeah, so the reason I'm hyped is because I love cinematic, dramatic, over-the-top experience stuff. I just love something that's a huge spectacle, and Battlefield does that well. And honestly, as I get older, I still enjoy
have to
shooters.
suspend my disbelief?
No,
Oh my
I don't
God.
because I know what it is. But I like it because I still like playing shooters. But some of these shooters now, you have to just be so good and on it and godlike to even be able to have a little bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And Battlefield, I think, is much more casual and accessible because the battles are just 64 on 64, 30 on 30. One person can't carry the team, and it's so squad based with the roles that you could suck at shooters but be a great medic because you played the objective and healed your friend and stuck with the team. And I think that just lends itself to a great experience, even if everyone in the friend group is bad at shooters, because it's hard.
Somebody's got to be good.
Yeah, so if you got a group of 4, all right, even if I'm bad at shooting, if I just give Mike ammo and he's the sweat lord shooting, we're still both having a good time. And I think a lot of other shooters just don't lend themselves to that. They lend themselves to being hyper competitive, small pace, which is fun, but if you're not God tier, you're just not going to be having a good time. And
Is that new to this Battlefield?
No, that's just Battlefield as a whole.
yeah, it's always been super chaotic and hey,
So
man,
why? But
throw
why are
grenades
you
and play the
excited
objective.
about? Are you just excited
Yeah.
for a new Battlefield game, or is there
The other
anything
reason I'm
particular?
excited is that I don't like shooters that take place in the World War era.
The
I just
past
think-
2 games were World War I and then World War II.
Not a fan. I just think I just think the weapons and technology are so just by the time period dated and limited that it limits your gameplay potential. So you can't do remote features, you can't do thermal scopes. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't exist. You can only customize a semi-automatic M1 Garand so many times before I'm like, dude, I don't care about this. So,
But the ping, Savon. But
But
the ping.
so I think the time period lets you be grounded, but still have a bit of fun with the weapon, similar to how Ratchet and Clank is going to let the technology let you do things that maybe you couldn't do before. I'm hoping with Battlefield, the
I
time
think it
period
will.
lets them
So-
be more creative. So that's why I'm excited. It's fun, dramatic, I think good for casuals without me having to just be a sweat lord to have a good time.
What if they made like a hyper realistic Ratchet and Clank first person shooter?
I'll
That'd
probably
be
play
cool.
it. I mean, that's
That'd be
called
cool.
Resistance Fall of Man. That was
Which
the group-
apparently they had a fourth one
Yep.
in development, but they decided that there were, too many apocalyptic games, so they canned it.
Yeah, but that was them playing. I didn't play Ratchet and Clank. I played Resistance Fall of Man. They made it, and the fingerprints were all over it in terms of the crazy fun weapon design. It's one of my favorite games ever, actually.
All right. The other thing that happened this week that caught my eye is like a news segment now. Tesla and Elon Musk, and I'm not a Tesla fan or an Elon Musk fan, but I gotta say this Tesla Model S Plaid, and what a stupid name, first of all. But I don't know why it's Plaid. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's nothing plaid in the car. I was
Nothing
looking
at
for
all. There's nothing to do with Plaid. The announced specs on this thing are crazy. So it looks like a normal dad's, regular sedan tootling around, taking the kid to soccer practice or whatever. It does cost a lot. It's $125K. So I want to lead there because it's crazy. Well, I didn't know how much it cost. It wasn't in the announcement. So I looked at all these stats and I got excited.
Well, you got multiple bathrooms.
Okay, but listen to these stats. Think of it looks like a normal Tesla. So if you've ever seen a Tesla, it looks like that. It's just a regular sedan. This thing goes 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. That is like a mind-blowing amount of time. I've driven a car that can do 0 to 60 in like 5.5 seconds, and that car
Did
felt
you do that?
really
You
fast.
You went 0 to 60 in 5.5
I mean, I
seconds?
floored it. I don't know. Its stats say it can do it, so I'm assuming it was close to thereabouts. And it felt really fast. It was just like an Infinity G35 or something, G37, like that kind of car. So it's not, top of the line supercar, but I'm telling you, like 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds feels really fast. For a car to be able to do 0 and 60 in 2, that car is going to feel like a rocket ship. It has a 400-mile range, like if you're not doing 0 to 60 burnouts. It has a 400-mile range. And what I think is going to be really cool, and I don't know how, I haven't followed Tesla, so I don't know if this is like unusual, but you can do a fast charge on it, which is something that I think a lot of people are worried about, and I would be worried about is like, if you run out of charge, you have to wait anywhere between 4 to 11 to however many hours to charge up your car. You can do a quick charge, 15 minutes, 187 miles range. That is game-changing, right? If you can just literally plug your car into one of the superchargers for 15 minutes, and now you can go another 187 miles.
It's not game changing because it's $125,000, Wesley.
But that'll trickle down. That'll trickle down
Game changing
to
for certain
Trickle down
people.
economics.
yeah, that'll trickle down to their regular cars in the next couple years, right? Like they'll have that in their regular model, 3 or 4 or whatever the next one is. So I think that is a big advancement, given that we don't have the electric charging infrastructure in place yet. And frankly, one of the reasons to not buy an electric car is that you have to wait 10 or 11 hours to charge your car to full strength to go another 300 miles, right? You go to the gas station and fill up your regular car, your gas powered car, and you're ready to go in 5 minutes, and now you can go another, 400 miles or whatever. I think that's huge. And
I think quick charge is actually common on electric vehicles, isn't it? I mean, not to the extent that this new Model S Plaid has.
This is
but
huge, though.
Quick
15
charge
minutes.
does exist already.
Yeah, but I don't know how far you can go. Can you go another 25 miles? Like that's nothing compared to 187. I don't know. I don't know
This
the
is
answer
definitely
to that.
exponentially higher.
This
but
is yeah.
I'm just saying.
This is crazy.
This is not a brand new idea to begin with. It's just exponentially better.
But I think that makes a big difference, right? Like if you're trying to do a road trip, that would be huge. You can't do a road trip one direction from like LA to Las Vegas, get there and then or like not get there and then be like, "Oh, well now we have to wait another 11 hours for my car to charge." Like that's just or 10 hours or however long it takes. You don't want to wait that long to charge it, and so you're just going to get a different car instead.
But as a car casual, what
for
does
Mike,
this mean
it
for
also
me?
can play Cyberpunk in the car.
Why Mike? Savon
Can-
played that game. I don't care about that game.
That game's awful. Don't.
All right, what's your question?
So I'm a car casual. I bought my first car last year.
Nice.
I
Congrats.
barely know the make of it.
Yeah.
I just know that
What color is
It
it?
has air conditioning, and it gets me where I
Important.
need to go.
Yeah, facts.
And the tires work, and I got Bluetooth. So like,
Oh,
to
you're
me
set.
as a casual,
Okay.
this car is like, the effing space machine.
Yeah.
What about this Elon Musk car matters to like the Joe Schmo like me?
Yeah, why don't you
It
just name it
doesn't
that?
because it's
No,
$125,000.
I'm saying beyond the money though, like I don't know what 0 to 60 like what would I need 0 to 60 for, and am I not living a lifestyle where you do need that?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like, I guess
yeah.
the
No,
question
I'm with
becomes,
Mike. It
money
doesn't.
aside, what is the appeal? I guess what is the appeal of it beyond like assuming you can afford it?
You
who's
can
buying this
flex
car
on
and
your
what does
poor friends. Like, come on, boys. It's $125,000.
That's what I'm saying. Ignore the money. I get them. I get it's
Yeah.
expensive, features wise.
It's the charging and the speed.
I think that charging and the speed is the main draw. There's other smaller things. I mean, he in his presentation, he talked about trying to like just limit the friction. Like you get in the car starts. You don't have to push the button. You don't have to turn it on. You don't have to do all that stuff. Like he's like, as much as we can automate, we should automate because that just makes the experience better. Like we can take that off your plate. I don't necessarily care about any of that part of it, but I think that's what they're going with this. They're putting bigger screens in. They're changing how the air conditioning works. Like they've got some tech things going on. Like again, your mileage may vary on that. I do think for someone like you, Savon, if you're like not into any of like the like performance features, then you're not going to care about a car like this. I just think with this particular like with us knowing we probably need to eventually move to electric cars rather than more gas powered cars, I think this model represents a step in the right direction in terms of like making it more usable for people. And if they can make it more affordable, which I'm assuming they can eventually. Why are you shaking your head? You don't think that's a good step in the right direction?
We don't have the time for him to have this technology, have it out at 125,000, and then like work its way down. B, like the F-150, and I'm not going to talk about that, but that exists. Like that is a scalable model of replacing a huge amount of gas cars, and it's cheap. The F-150 electric is going to be cheaper than the gas one, so it's like I don't have time for Elon.
It's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be more affordable.
It's cheaper than the regular one. You have a direct financial incentive to buy an electric car rather than Elon having a $125,000 car that can play Cyberpunk when the planet is literally on fire and be like, oh, well, we'll get there eventually. Like, off.
Yeah, as someone that lives in New York, can they just spend their time on Hyperloop? Like, I don't even want cars.
Honestly,
give me mass transit.
So it's a really amazing features, but it seems like it's more so just for like, but if you got a bunch of money, or for like if you're a car enthusiast, but not very practical for the typical person. Is that what I'm hearing?
This is for all the tech bros.
Great if you're a rich
drive a
enthusiast,
fancy car.
not practical for someone who's like.
So when you move to Austin, do they like give you a Tesla? Is that like part of it? Are you like legally obligated?
Yeah,
to, like,
teacher salary. I'm definitely doing that. No, but I agree
grifting.
with you. I totally agree with you. I don't think this. Obviously, this is not a reasonable car for like regular people, right? Like that's not what this is yet. And it doesn't need to go 0 to 60. Their regular base Model S, which is still expensive. It's $75,000, but like I was telling Mike, that is more affordable, and you probably know somebody who has a $75,000 car or like something close in that neighborhood. That car still is fast. It still has a pretty good range. I think its range is almost 400 miles. I don't think it has the quick charge feature yet. What I think I'm interested in is as companies start to get this level of technology advancement, it doesn't have to be Tesla. Can we get to a point where you can go, even a 20-minute, 30-minute charge, but you can go 200 miles? That, I think, changes how wide you can actually deploy this. Yeah. And so that's what I'm more interested in. I don't need the Tesla, but I do think this represents this is like an advancement in engineering that we haven't seen necessarily to this point in a wide production line.
It's not because of how much it costs to produce it. I mean, like objectively,
but will we get
the
better
technologies
at it?
Yeah, Tesla's whole model hasn't really been succeeding. Like it hasn't actually like changed infrastructure the way that we were hoping for when it was first announced, you know? And so like this is just
how not
another marker in that.
Because
like his whole
shtick is like with Tesla was like he is like focused on saving the planet and he wants to make like the electric charging infrastructure and he wants to like have Tesla lead the way for the big change. I mean that's his whole fucking shtick.
Okay.
But they didn't do it, and Ford just did it in a massive way. There's 100,000 pre-orders for the F-150. Like that is actually a palpable change in terms of like emissions on a nationwide scale. I don't know. I'm just like, and it's just like, why did you have to put cyberpunk in the thing? Like, it's a meme. Like, how are you trying to tell me you're trying to save the world with your $125,000 car, and you're just gonna go ahead and meme like, oh well, you could see the cyberpunk penis in it.
Yeah, and cyberpunk also is like just objectively, and you could have put any other game and been like, okay, maybe cyberpunk is actually a bad game, and brand association wise, I'm like, ooh, y'all done lost some points with me. Like, y'all.
No, but they were doing it because they were doing it because they were showing the power because they knew that people know that there were computers and PS4s that couldn't run it. Yeah, that's why they did it. But I agree with you, Mike. I do think the F-150 Lightning, which if you guys haven't seen Marcus Brownlee's rundown on it, you should. It's pretty cool. Is going to make a bigger impact. Do you not agree that like there's an advantage or there's a benefit to having a group like Tesla pushing what's possible and making people think? Like, I mean, I think it did it for me. It's like, oh, this is possible, right? I didn't think this was possible for us to be able to get to a point at which we could do this kind of fast charge with that kind of range. And now if you're Ford or if you're GM or whoever, Toyota, you're like, oh, this is possible. Let's put our R&D on it. Or like,
is he going to share the technology?
People are going to start expecting us to have something like this.
I know, but he's not sharing the shit. So it's like, how are you going to tell me you're doing this?
He doesn't have to share it. He's said this is possible. And so now
he's like, oh, this is possible. I'm going to make a shit ton of money off of it because God, I'm just kidding. I'm going to just go on the left.
That's super problematic, but he's also like, did you expect different from him? Like, I don't know.
So this is what I'll say. And again, I won't pretend to be an expert in Elon Musk.
And we got to get out of here.
Yeah. But the quick thing I'll say is like, there's a very big difference between possible and accessible. We have like the same way the United States economy has so much money and resources. Like that's cool. But if it's not accessible to everyone else, then those numbers don't really mean anything. Like, oh, the economy's doing great, the stocks are up. Yeah, cool. But if a regular person is still broke, that doesn't really mean anything to them. And I feel a similar way. Again, as a casual, this technology seems dope. But like if Joe Schmo, me, who's not a car expert, doesn't even feel like I can get my hands on it or afford it, to me, that don't mean nothing.
It's how I feel about the PlayStation 5.
What if I...
so in 2 years, if Ford or Toyota come out with a car that can do fast charging, doesn't need to have the 0 to 60 time, right?
Wes, I'm telling you, they're already working
in the normal
on it.
time.
Yeah, it's like Tesla is so not it, bro. So not it. Like Savon, to go to your point, what if I could tell you now you could get, if you're someone that needs a work truck, an F-150, you can get the same truck for cheaper and never have to pay for gas.
That sounds like a great deal. I would want that.
Exactly.
I want F-150,
exactly. So now that is actually
impactful
change through capitalism. Blech. Tesla, not it.
Oh my God, the bleh. All right, comrade Mike.
Joe Engel shooting lefty over here.
We're now sponsored by Ford. Let's get that Ford money.
I want to drive that truck like Biden, man.
Comfy is no longer my friend. Ford is my best friend.
If Ford made a not truck, because I don't want to drive a truck, but Ford made all of those features into a regular car, I would definitely consider that. It does sound dope. So if you guys haven't checked it out and you're interested in electric car tech or whatever, and you're listening to this, it is pretty cool.
Last point. Just so we're all clear on this, every car in Europe could disappear and it wouldn't have a palpable change on climate change because of corporations are largely the ones driving mass emissions. One cruise line like Norwegian or Carnival or whatever, they produce more emissions than every car in Europe combined.
Is that true?
Confidently Wrong is now a leftist podcast.
I mean, it's kind of
Next week we will be
Boom.
tiering which rich person we are going to eat first.
Sounds like Elon Musk is at the top of that list.
Oh
my
yeah,
God.
Grimes too.
Oh my
Grimes too.
god. That's great.
Follow us on Instagram and where are we? Instagram and Twitter, although I think I've been less active on Twitter lately. At confidently_pod. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you want us to look at next. What are you excited for? Friends, we're out of here.
Who should we eat first?
Hey!
Course meal.